I'm going to tell you a story about how microalgae is going to affect you all. But before that, I want to let you know that I'm a recovering member of the television industry. And that means that I definitely know the value of a good story. And the story that I'm about to tell you is the reason why I left television and realized that it wasn't going to be enough to document and talk about the stories that might change the world. Instead, I wanted to be a part of a company that was actually working to do exactly that. And that's why I joined Solazyme. But I'm also going to talk to you today about shifting paradigms, rediscovering an ancient resource to unlock possibilities and provide a new level of flexibility, abundance, and a new type of resilience. But before I get into that, I want to do a little poll. Who here has heard of microalgae as a sustainable ingredient? Anyone? Did anyone have the cookies? They're really good. There you go. There you go. So whether you're a microalgae newbie or an expert, I wanted to show you a very, very quick video that kind of gives you an overview of how we do what we do, and more importantly, why we do what we do. Oops, video.
Mudanças podem ser difíceis, mudar o mundo ainda mais, mas não precisa acontecer tudo de uma vez. E mesmo os menores passos hoje podem fazer toda a diferença no futuro. Por isso, começamos microscopicamente pequeno, microalga. Esse minúsculo organismo pode ser a solução para muitos dos nossos maiores problemas. Ancestral e poderoso, é fonte de energia original de boa parte da vida na Terra. E se conseguíssemos transformar esse passado no alicerce do nosso futuro? Hoje, nós podemos. Estamos desenvolvendo produtos seguros e renováveis à base de microalgas, que podem melhorar o cotidiano das pessoas em todo o mundo. De alimentos mais saudáveis e sustentáveis, a soluções completas para cuidados com a pele. De combustíveis mais limpos e renováveis, a produtos para a indústria. Começamos pequeno para criar produtos com potencial de transformar o mundo.
Microalgae is one of the world's original oil producers, and it can produce any kind of triglyceride oil. The way that it produces and the reason why it can produce any kind of triglyceride oil is because all of the machinery of every single higher plant is already within this perfect little factory. We've also discovered that not only does it produce oil, it could produce a lot of other incredible things. Nutrients, micronutrients, fibers, proteins, and healthy fats, making for uniquely powerful food ingredients. I'm going to flip through a couple of the slides that are going to look a little bit familiar to you guys, but we're going to go really, really quickly because what I want to get to for you is two of the biggest rising trends that we are seeing right now in terms of microalgae adoption. So, if you remember this slide, this simple drawing talks about how we make oil from microalgae using fermentation. But the main takeaway that I want you to get from this slide is not necessarily how we make oil from microalgae. It's more about how one facility can produce so many incredible products for food, for fuels, for chemicals, for so many other different industries. And there's our beautiful, huge, giant factory in Sao Paulo State that we have built with our wonderful partner, Bunge. And this factory today is making, producing, and delivering oil every single day to our partners. And those partners are in really broad markets. So I think that this is where we left off. I want to focus on microalgae as a trend in two key market areas. First of all, in home and personal care, and then secondly, as a brand new food ingredient, a healthy new ingredient that is being incorporated into foods today. But before we get into that, this is a sustainability conference, so you're going to expect to see a slide like this every now and then. We did a third-party ISO-certified review of our greenhouse gas emissions, and we're really happy to see that making algae oil in Brazil has one of the lowest carbon footprints than any other major commodity oil in the market today. In addition, we looked at other things in terms of sustainability around the way that we produce our oils, and one of the things that we looked at was water consumption. In California, we're going into our 4th year of a very, very serious drought, and water is a precious resource. So we wanted to make sure that our process was water friendly. And indeed, we were really excited to find out that it too has the lowest water consumption of any other majorly available commodity oil. So at Solazyme, what we do and how we think about the world is how can we use this technology to fundamentally address environmental issues that we see. And I don't think that there is anything bigger that we're facing today as a planet than deforestation. As you know, palm oil and palm kernel oil are used in a wide variety of food, personal care, home care products, soap, shampoos, and unfortunately, the rapid rise of palm oil has been cited as one of the major reasons for destruction of the rainforest and peatlands. And as our population continues to grow and incomes rise, there's going to be an even greater demand for these luxury goods. How are we going to meet this demand without putting further pressure on these precious, precious zones? Now, we're going to do a little science. If you'll bear with me, to help meet this growing demand, we fundamentally have to do more with less. So initially, in the beginning stages of the company, we started to use microalgae to produce oils that we knew were already being produced. So we were mimicking the oils that are already in the commercial markets today. But then we started to think about it. And we thought, could we take this to another level? Could we do even more with less? So to understand this concept, you need to first understand that when companies choose to buy an oil, they're generally looking for certain fatty acids within that oil in order to provide the benefits that consumers demand. So, PKO, palm kernel oil. For instance, many companies use one specific co-product from a palm plantation, the very, very tiny kernel inside the palm fruit. It's only about 11% of the total production of a palm oil plantation. And the total oil that you get from the palm plantation, the total oil of capric in it, is even smaller than that. In fact, PKO really only contains about 5% of capric on average. And this capric is incredibly special. It is the secret sauce in your home and personal care products that make it lather well, feel luxurious on your skin, and act well as an antibacterial even. So we challenged ourselves, what if we can make an oil that was 40% capric? Could we change the paradigm? And this is where we're going. Today, I'm really excited to say that this is the future. This special algae oil that we've discovered is 40% of that special capric. So let's take doing more with less even one step further. When you look at this on a large scale, you can see what a monumental difference that this can make. Let's take one example. If we were to take half of our Solazyme Bunge renewable oil production and produce just this special algae oil, you would get 20,000 metric tons of capric fatty acids. The same amount of capric from PKO, you're gonna need 8 times the amount of oil. By using algae oil, you're fundamentally doing more with less. So in terms of land requirements, and this is really important when you think about the destruction of our rainforests, in terms of land requirements, this makes a huge difference. To produce the amount of PKO on the previous slide I just showed you, you're gonna need 800,000 hectares of land. To get the same amount of that special cut of the barrel, you only need 2% of the land to grow the sugarcane on for our production to make this incredible oil. This means, in Brazilian terms, it's the equivalent of saving about 1 million maracanas. So, the great news is that none of this happens alone. And we've been really fortunate as a company. Again, we're small, and we've been lucky to have incredible partners working with us, developing the next generation of sustainable raw materials to go into all of these products that we're producing today. And as you can see, they're already doing amazing things. They're making their own breakthroughs. The first bar of soap using sustainable algae oil. Natura just announced that they're going to be purchasing our oil. And BASF, just a few short weeks ago, took a huge leap within the home and personal care space when they announced that they have made the world's first microalgae-derived algal betaine. Now, if you don't know what an algal betaine is, it's the stuff that makes soap actually clean things. Whoops. One more forward. The next trend, microalgae as a healthy food ingredient. This is a huge opportunity for us. And I'm hoping that a lot of you have already had the algae cookies. I think I took a little poll and found out a few had. And when we look at the fact that microalgae can make so many different healthy nutrients, from healthy oils to proteins to micronutrients to soluble and insoluble fiber, the possibilities are endless. So right now we have 3 different microalgae ingredients, and I'm going to go through them quickly so that you can kind of understand the benefits and how they work within the food system and why this is such a revolution in the food industry. But revolutions don't happen unless consumers are demanding the change. And there are some major trends that we are beginning to see in the consumer markets that are really opening the way for healthy microalgae ingredients. Consumers want cleaner labels. They want a ban on trans fats. They want to eat lower on the food chain in terms of sustainability. They want more plant-based parts of their diet. They understand that these things are going to be important as we find out more and more about how food is connected directly with health. And I love this slide. I don't know if you remember me telling you at the beginning of the speech, it was a little loud, but we feel a great like-mindedness with Brazil. And that spirit of innovation, that open-mindedness permeates this country. And we did a little research to make sure that Brazil was going to be a good place for us to potentially launch these new revolutionary ingredients. And we found out something pretty amazing. Brazil is the trendsetter in the world. They are ready for this. The open-minded acceptance of this new class of ingredients exceeds even what we are seeing in the US in terms of adoption and in terms of open-mindedness. So I was talking about how food is actually the new frontier of healthcare. Eating healthy can make a fundamental difference in your health. And that's what drives us. So I want to take a look at our culinary cooking oil. This is a perfect example of how something so profound can make such a big difference in someone's life. So, this oil has the highest level of monounsaturated fats than any other oil known. And the fact of the matter is, that's really good for your heart. And it's also really good for inflammation. In fact, the benefits of monounsaturated fats, doctors are starting to recommend that people have at least 50 grams of monounsaturated fats a day for their health. So what does that look like? Well, you can eat 3.5 avocados or 100 almonds, or you can have 4 simple tablespoons of algae oil to receive all of your requirements of monounsaturated fats. And the other incredible thing about this oil is it's incredibly low in saturated fats, the bad fats for you. Our next ingredient, whole algal flour, and this is exciting because this is our first ingredient that we're going to be introducing into Brazil, and it is the ingredient that made those cookies that you ate so incredibly yummy and also so incredibly good for you. It is a whole algal ingredient. You can think of it kind of like a whole food. You can replace butter and eggs in anything you cook. You can dramatically reduce cholesterol and fat, but all of this happens without compromising, taste or texture. So I'm a mom, and when I go to the grocery store, my kids are always asking for whatever is the most unhealthy thing they could possibly get their hands on. And so I'm constantly balancing in my mind, God, I want to get the indulgent bad stuff, but I'm worried about, making sure that they get enough health and nutrition in their daily diets. What if it was just easy? What if you could go to the ice cream freezer and you could pick out an ice cream that has the same incredible, indulgent, creamy mouthfeel as a premium ice cream? Because we all know that when you have low-fat ice cream, you know you're having low-fat ice cream. It's not as good, you know you're getting cheated, and it's just not the same. This ice cream, by just adding 2% of whole algal flour, has all of that same rich, luxurious mouthfeel as the most premium ice cream on the market today. And how do we know this? We know this because we've taste tested it. Yes, there are professional ice cream tasters out there, and they have told us that it's true, that this ice cream tastes just as good as the full-fat ice cream as we're all used to. And finally, algal protein. We have an algal protein, and frankly, you know what? This is an incredible product. Imagine taking sugar and turning it into a healthy source of protein. And right now we know in the United States, protein is an incredible trend. Everybody's trying to get more protein into everything. You see it being used to fortify breads. You see it being used to fortify crackers. And here's an example of a cracker that we're working on right now. So this cracker is actually something that I'd feel okay giving my kids to. It's got 2 times the protein. It has 2 times the fiber. It's less calories. What's not to love? But let's talk about this in terms of a global perspective just for a moment. As we speak to food producers, we're constantly coming up with new ways to use these products. And we're working with companies across the board, from large multinationals to very small local businesses. And again, let's not forget, we are transforming sugar into healthy protein in a matter of days. And when you look at this from a macro planet perspective, and you realize that there's going to be a growing demand for plant-based sources of protein, and then you start to think about how these ingredients can help us with resilience as a planet in helping to address global food security, you can see how this too is truly doing more with less. So the good news is, I'm in communications, and this is starting to catch on in the US media. The press is beginning to notice because of the benefits that it addresses and because of the fact that what it addresses is so incredibly spot on with the conversations that are happening in social media. So what's next? It's been a long road, and the journey has definitely not been for the faint of heart. And as our video said earlier, change is hard. And for every single brave company, courageous company that we work with to incorporate these new ingredients to make their products more sustainable, it takes initiative, it takes trust, and it takes a lot of work to adopt new ingredients. But this is how you change the world. You just roll up your sleeves, you do the work, you put your head down, and you decide to make it happen. So the next phase really isn't about us at all. It's actually about you. And you might be wondering why I'm ending on a picture of a surfboard. In fact, we teamed up with the folks at Arctic Foam, one of the most popular US surfboard manufacturers, and students from the University of California at San Diego, and they made the world's first algae-based surfboard. Who knew? And actually, the surfboard, one of the surfboards, happens to be out in the activation hub, and the other surfboard is on a world tour right now with National Geographic. So for me, when I look at this picture, the coolest thing about it is that this is something that we never imagined would be possible. And it really embodies for us that blue sky's next stage. It's not about what we do next. Again, it's about what you do next. It's about putting our oils and ingredients into the hands of innovators and inventors and standing back and being amazed to see how they seek to change the world, how they decide to make a difference in their own unique and creative ways. Thank you very much.